everybody. This is my friend Dale Dawson. Now, a few of you may have remembered him, maybe not, but you might recognize him from one of our courageous conversations about having young onset in the family, having a family come together and supporting a wife who you love and kids that you adore through this process from beginning to end, and figuring out how to do that. And Dale did that with his wife, Patty, and his family. But we also found out that Dale has another role in this world, and it is called law enforcement. Dun, 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 dun. So, Dale, you are in Eugene, Oregon. Am I right?
Yes.
Oh, good. I did get it right. I was thought, I hope I'm on the right side of Oregon, because there's two different sides. There's the coast, which everybody knows a lot about, and then there's Eugene, which is this beautiful town in this beautiful area, but not a lot of big cities over on that side.
No, not at all. We are the big city, actually.
A lot of spread out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of territory that people who need services are going to need services from law enforcement, particularly, or EMS or something, because they're pretty spread out and sparsely populated areas there. Yeah.
It really is. There's a lot of small towns here.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk today and have a conversation. It takes some courage to talk about the role of law enforcement in the world of dementia care, because those two things in and of themselves don't seem like there'd be a lot of interaction, and yet my background says, oh, but there is.
Yeah, that there is.
Yeah, you guys are the front line and often the first touch that somebody may have figuring out that something isn't working like it should.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that can be fairly easy, and some of that can be pretty rough. So I'm going to let you say sort of what are some of your experiences about law enforcement interfacing with the world of dementia, and then I'll ask you some questions about some of the things that I know about.
Okay. One of the things that comes to mind is I got a call, or what? Not I, but a lot of times when I hear these dementia-related calls or Alzheimer's, I go because I have that background. So I go help my officers out. One of the first ones I got was a family had called because the dad was out driving his car, and they didn't think he should be driving, that it was unsafe for him. So we actually found him, got him to park, and then walked him back to his house. But it's also trying to explain to them how to go about taking the license away, maybe disabling the car so that he can't drive because they don't get how to remember how to step on the brake or what the red light means. And I have that from a personal experience with my wife in the car of, there's a red light, you need to brake. And because she had to think about it, it took her a second to find the brake.
Yeah.
So, and that was the end of her driving.
Yeah.
But part of what we can do is we can put people in for retesting for a driver's license. So we'll fill out a form and say they have dementia, and we send that to the driver's license bureau, and we can say this person needs a retest. That doesn't mean that they stop driving. We try to get them to, and then we encourage the family, disable it, hide the keys, and call us, if this happens.
Yeah. And so one of the things that I've done historically is I've called folks and said, hey, Dale, I hate to ask this, but I'm having a gentleman who's having a really hard time. And his wife is really afraid to bring this up. He has been evaluated by the doctor. They do not want him driving. He has submitted. He's lost his license, but he's still trying to drive.
Yeah.
Would you be able to come out and talk about, not driving, because when you drive without a license, X happens? Would you be willing to come and spend some time, just trying to get him from a different perspective with your uniform on to see whether or not you could get him to see the value of not driving from that perspective?
It's really yes and no.
Yeah.
And I say that because it depends on how busy we are. I mean, if you're in a bigger city, then you may not get that unless you happen to know some of the officers or you see them around. Take the time to talk to them. I would try to go do that if I can. Our dispatch may say, no, that's not something that we do.
Yeah.
And, but if I hear about it, then I'm always willing to go help, because I want to help people be successful. And if I can keep somebody from being hurt or getting into a crash, then that's the best thing I can do.
Yeah, and I have found that for many older males, that sometimes an authority figure like a police officer saying, well, sir, driving right now, I'll be honest with you, if I were to find you driving without a license, there is a greater consequence for that. I mean, and it's pretty significant what we would have to do driving without a license, as opposed to just for right now, letting your wife drive and, appealing and see if you want to get your license back, then go that route. But driving without a license, if I catch you, I find you doing that, there is a significant penalty.
Yeah, that, and I used to work in Utah. We ended up having a guy, he lived in Provo and I lived about 70 miles southeast of there. He went to the Burger King and he ended up 70 miles away from home.
Yeah.
We didn't even have a Burger King within 10 miles of us. So, that's the other safety issue, is being out at nighttime. They just get lost. They have no idea where they're going. So
this is not, we're being mean because we don't want people to drive. I mean, it's really not. Yeah. It's the ability of the individual. They might test even fine with DMV, that they actually can, in that setting, they can do it. But when at night they're trying to get someplace, and that's that hippocampal problem where the brain just can't figure out how to get from point A to point B, even though they could have done it without thinking about it, but now they can't. And so now that risk of, and this is one of those ones, wandering is typically perceived, and I know you'll talk about this in a minute because it's one of the big ways law enforcement often gets involved, but this is a different kind of wandering. This is motor vehicle wandering, where people get in a motor vehicle and they travel, but then they get turned around lost in time and place, and they could be looking for a street that doesn't exist in this town, like a Burger King, a shop. But they can travel long distances and miss the cues that they're running out of gas, miss the cues that they're on a highway they're not familiar with. They could dehydrate. I mean, this can really get pretty significant in a short window of time. So there's driving mishaps, and then there's also getting lost driving. And both of those are really points of contact with law enforcement. Yeah. Because what are you going to do? You call 911. My husband has the car. I don't know where he is. He's been gone 5 hours.
Yeah.
Or he's trying to drive. He's had his license revoked. I don't know what to do. I don't want him to get hurt. I don't want him to hurt anybody.
Yeah.
Help. And so those are often points of connection.
Oh, yeah. One of the things there was an older couple in our support group, and he's the one that had dementia, and he was driving. He couldn't react to a traffic problem, and what he ended up doing is going off the road and crashing into basically a bulldozer, and hurt both of them pretty badly. So, and it's kind of, the family needs to, or the significant other needs to kind of notice when that bad spot is there and just say, you need to be done, and explain to them about it.
Yeah, and that's where sometimes the family can't figure out how to do that. And what we need resources, and it needs to go beyond 911. This isn't we don't want it to be a 911 call. And maybe getting up, I don't know who to get up with. And so having law enforcement know, well, here's a couple options, there's two ways, here's some ways that you could do this. There are some people out there that might be able to help you, make this happen. And physicians are not always really, to be honest, really good at noticing when someone is getting to this place of ooh. So I'm curious, Dale, even with your physician, with Patty, did they notice that she wasn't able to do the stoplight and react?
No.
Or was that you?
That was me. And what I had told the doctor, I said, because of what I do for a living, when I see that she's getting to that point, she's done. You don't have to worry about that, because I know the liability that goes with it, and I know what to look for. And and it's on the same trip had some tripping points. One, she was driving and I started talking to her, and she just looked over at me and started talking and was driving, not even looking at the road. And then she did the red light thing about 15 minutes later, and it's like, okay, you're done. And that was my decision, and she was good with it.
Yeah. And I think that's your relationship with her allowed you to do that. And so I think that's where people don't have those relationships. This is where you might need a lot more support. And getting that support before you need it, getting it lined up before you need it is so important, because if you wait until that moment and then you try to pull the power trip of that's it, you're done. What do you mean I'm done? I can keep driving. And then you find yourself with somebody who's driving angry and has dementia. That's a really bad combination.
Yeah. And, and that's where hopefully you have kids or you have friends, and you and I had talked a little bit earlier, and we can talk about, when family's not there, and the poor woman didn't have any support. So
so how can you get where you need to be when you need to be there, and how do you get places that you want to be so that you don't feel trapped, and how do you get your needs met, kind of thing. So one of these places of connection is driving. We got that. And I mentioned wandering because I know that's my background. Is I would do training for folks on elopement and wandering in North Carolina. We did some skill building because we knew that risk was so high with folks. So talk about it from that side of the street, though, Dale.
Okay, so what we actually had, and it was only a couple of weeks ago, a guy who was wandering, and his wife, he wouldn't listen to his wife to follow her back home. And so, we went out and found him and just talked to him, and enough of the officers are calm enough that they can get him, hey, let's go this way. You live over here, and start walking back. And we did that. And then I did a follow-up conversation with him about 20 minutes later. The best thing that people can do is be prepared. Have a current picture, of kind of like the picture I see of you, it's from, midsection to your head, so we can see your face and things like that. Try to remember what they're wearing. And if your department is small enough and you have a good enough connection with the officers, what I did is I put this gentleman in our system, and we have his picture, so that if we ever have to go look for him, then we bring up his name, bang, there's a picture of him right there. And probably almost all police departments have access to a database like that. And if not, we can always say, like one of the neighboring cities, if they don't have it, I can bring up the picture and email it to them.
Cool.
And, so it's nice if you keep a relatively current picture, probably, less than a month old. Because that's a great help.
Yeah, and one other thing that I know that we used to do is if I knew where they used to live, I know where they used to work, I know where they used to have lunch, I know that kind of stuff. Keep that handy, because for many people who time travel, and that's that place in dementia where people really think they're in another place in another time. They think they're still working. They think they still do this. They think they still have to go pick up the kids. And so those kind of things, the more we can have and then pull it up quickly and say, they used to do, he's been talking a lot about getting together with the guys from the Ruritan Club. I don't know, but I'm wondering whether that's a possibility. And so, then we have a place to start, really looking at where he might be trying to be, because he thinks he needs to go to the Ruritan meeting. Those kind of things. But sometimes people simply get out and get turned around and they have no idea where they are, but they keep moving because they figure they'll recognize something. Those are risky. They're like,
the other thing to do is, when you notice somebody missing, call sooner rather than later, because we can send 4 or 5 people to go look. And if you find them, you just call us back and say, we found him, and we're all good. But the longer it takes you, the farther away they get, the more hidden they get, or they end up around people who don't know them. So.
Yeah, and also I would say the mobility skills, when you get worried or scared, don't necessarily stay strong. And so trips and falls and getting into places that you can't figure out how to get out of also become problematic. Yeah. And then it becomes a larger search and rescue, and it's much more front page news. So, yikes. So we've covered those. What else do you think are some of the high spots here?
Just when things start getting out of hand, give us a call. When I was back in Utah, we had talked about before, is there was a man who had dementia and his wife was out there with him and he didn't recognize her. Yeah. And so he wouldn't go with her because she was a strange woman. And it's like, I have no idea who this woman is. Get her away from me. Yeah. And so, you get another person to keep him occupied. And then this lady went in, she just changed from a blue sweater, I think just took the sweater off, and she's just wearing, regular shirt. And the guy goes, "Oh, there's my wife now." And it was, less than 5 minutes.
Click. Yeah.
And you never know what's going to do that little change. And it's okay to call us. If we're busy, it may take us a little longer to get there, because that's what it's all driven by, is how busy we are. And they rate calls on, yes, it's important to you, but in the big scheme of things, is this an important thing? Somebody who wanders off and it's considered a missing person, yes, they're a hazard to themselves. So that it gets to be a priority.
Yeah. So sometimes I think, Dale, what to do in the interim until the police get there. Quit trying to press your point. So if he says you're not my wife, at that moment go, you know what? Let's wait till the police get here. Let them figure all this out. I thought I should be here. If I'm not who you think I'm supposed to be, I don't want to leave you alone until they get here, and then I'd be happy to step away and you guys can talk and figure out what to do. But being willing to suspend that relationship right now, if he says no and you're saying yes, then continuing to argue about it till somebody in authority shows up doesn't make a lot of sense. And it's being willing to let go of that need to be right and for your person to get it. Because, quite honestly, let's own up, we're embarrassed that we had to call law enforcement in. Yeah. I never thought it would, he's my husband. Why is he doing that? I mean, that sense of this doesn't feel right to bring in law enforcement. And I think, but the title of law enforcement really is serve and protect. I mean, this is not meant to be a punitive measure for anybody. It's really meant, I think I need help and I don't know what else to do, because I don't have a lot of people in my world anymore. Yeah. And I'm scared is what it boils down to, because I don't know what else to do to make it work. And it's like, well.
And you never know who you might get. I mean, this will be a little self-serving here, but maybe you're lucky enough to get somebody like me who's been there. Right. Or sometimes you can get officers who have been to that type of call before, and we have resources that you may not have thought about, or we can help you make your house a little bit safer so that they can't get out. There's things like that. And sometimes it's just nice to see a friendly face, and we're not the bad people that a small percentage of the people make us out to be.
Yeah, I mean, really and truly, quite honestly, if early on we get a chance to just sort of say, hey, go by the station, say, hey, I'm Teepa, this is my husband, Dick. He is starting to have some challenges with where he is and when he is. And, I just wanted us to get to know each other a tiny bit. So he sees you, he meets you, but I meet you, and you hear that we're sort of doing the best we know how. But it would be better probably for you guys to know us ahead of time than to meet in the middle of a dark night with him raging at me or me raging at him, and you're wondering which of the two of us is having issues.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Because it can get a little confusing. I mean, I have had really smart, very, very connected individuals who have developed dementia know that you call the emergency people when someone's out of control. So they called on their spouse to get them locked up because they didn't want their spouse to be in control of things. And it was their background, their expertise. They were lawyers, they were doctors, they were people who had expertise at what you do in an emergency situation. So they used law enforcement. Unfortunately, the spouse was not as familiar. And it's like, officers, no, wait, he's the one with dementia. And it's like, ma'am, it was like they were being very polite, but he had the skill. I mean, this was 3 particular cases I know about. They had the skill. The wife ended up, the spouse, in one case a male and 2 was female, ended up in jail or arrested or taken in, and they did the report. And then it was only later that the truth of the matter was, and because people were not as familiar, and this was about 15 years ago. This was when I was actively working in North Carolina a lot, and we had cases where they were, and it's really, in law enforcement, it was like, I had no idea that somebody could sound that intact. And it's like, it's really hard because these were people that were very skillful. And in that moment, they were really good at doing what they had done in the past. They knew how to do this exactly. They knew the right words to say. And the spouse is like, no, that's not true. I was like, oh my heavens.
And with as hard as it is to, it's easy to say, but with as hard as it is to do, if you can remain calm, yes, we know somebody's missing, and this sounds bad, but it's a bigger deal for you than it is for me because I go to it on a regular basis. So I can be that calm that you need. If you can relax a little bit, we can be the calm that you need. We'll find people, we'll have somebody with you, and we'll go out and look for your person, which, and sometimes that's all it takes. If you just slow down a little bit, we'll help you out. That's what we're here for. And then, just take the time to talk to us.
Yeah. And don't become so overwrought that you can't get words to come out, because it's really difficult for law enforcement to help you when you can't talk. And it's hard when people living with dementia don't have words, but it's also difficult in your situation, to try to get data from me when well, you don't understand. It's like, well, I'm not going to get to understand if we can't have a conversation. So one other area, there are many areas we could go into. One other I want to, though, mention, because I think it's so under-identified, is gun safety issues.
Oh, yes.
When somebody is starting to experience dementia and they own and they've used firearms, I think it's really important to bring this up, because I neither want somebody in law enforcement to be harmed by someone who misperceives a situation, nor do I want that person harmed by dementia. I mean, it's bad enough you have dementia to be involved in a firearm issue. And so working on this kind of content, I think, is really a missed piece of information in way too many situations. Until it becomes an issue. And then it's hard because it's an issue. So, Dale, any thoughts on your part there?
And that's, to me, it's all that family involvement again, and friends. Hopefully you have some long-term friends that are involved, that basically you can go secure the firearms, somewhere, because you just don't want somebody getting a hold of that. And especially if they don't recognize you, you're that intruder. And, if they know I had an intruder in my house and I shot that person. I can't say that I've heard a lot of that, but I know that we've had people who have come to the door before with firearms, and that's the deal. And then that changes the dynamics of our interaction with them. Not that it's always bad, but it puts us on edge pretty hard.
You don't want to be in a situation with someone who is not being reasonable and logical and rational, has a weapon, and is in fear, is in anger, is in an emotional state. It's not a safe thing. I mean, it's not safe for anybody. So looking at ammunition, looking at doing at least something to sort of know what's there, and to maybe even, I would say, and this is me, letting law enforcement know, my husband is very protective, and he's had he has Lewy body dementia, and that's probably the greatest concern I have, is often with Lewy body, because there's so much paranoia that goes with it. that I think that really is that, ooh, and they can have delusional thinking, and it can be really that moment where their brain says one thing and they see things that are not accurate, and their brain tells them that they have to do something, and it's like, yikes. So we don't need those kind of situations coming up in the world. I don't.
Yeah. Well, you know, and it's a couple of things on that. It's like, one, if you have somebody coming into your house to care for them, one, you know, 95% of all people are very good, because in the police world, we deal with probably 5 to 7% of the population on a regular basis. Those are the habitual criminals. You know, everything that we do is made up of people. I mean, you know, you hear the story about the bad police, the doctors, the teachers. So you have to think about caregivers too. You know, some of them are honest, some aren't. You know, you should be locking up your firearms anyhow. And if what it takes is to change the combination on a gun safe, you know, get your kids to help do that. Or even to get the guns out of the house. That's probably the most preferential thing. So.
Yeah. And, you know, anything, of course, can become a weapon, but sometimes those are quick action things that, you know, and for people who tend to use guns as a way of feeling protected, and put them under their pillow and sleep with them in the bed, this is that moment where, ooh, now we're going to add a dementia with this. That really, boy, is just a recipe for things that could go wrong in a very short window of time. So any other situations you want to bring up? That was mine. You know, I felt like the firearms got to come up because, you know, all too often we don't want things to go south. And so dealing with that all the time.
A little bit of the stranger danger kind of thing. So,
good.
You know, it especially depends on what area of town that you're walking in, and, you know, people, stranger danger, you know, because there's people who are always out there trying to, you know, scam you for your money type thing. My window is very small, because it's like every person I deal with for the most part is a bad person. So I probably generalize where it seems like 90% of the people are bad and only 10% are good. It's actually the other way around, but I always deal with that 10%. But it's just, you know, be cautious with your money. Don't leave it laying around. Don't give them a lot of money to have walking around. Patty went into the care facility, you know, and it's not necessarily even the staff, it's the other people, you know, that go shopping. And, you know, I took away all of her good jewelry. It's like, here, you know, you need a ring, I'll get you a ring. And it's, you know what, it's not a family heirloom.
No, exactly.
You know, but it's also being on the telephone, people who can, you know, telephone scammers. Think, you know, it's just be listening to what's going on, and, hey, who are you talking to? You know, and if they can't tell you, you know, hey, mind if I talk to them for a moment? And then you may find out it's one of your friends and they just didn't, you know, get it very well.
So, and it could be the other group that you bring to mind is people who take advantage of folks and letting law enforcement know it's happened in an area. Because once they get a little pocket, these guys are pretty prolific. And so they can do neighborhoods with repairs and checks and it's casing houses. I mean, they particularly are good at picking up on older adults, vulnerable adults, people who have some issues, and then they start roaming about and letting somebody know, not being embarrassed that it happened to you, but using that as a heads up of, this happened to me and they were really sketchy. And I want you guys to know about that, because I know I have other people who are vulnerable in my neighborhood. And we do have, you know, that we do our little neighborhood thing, but we got some people who aren't on it.
And the good thing with that is, so we, you know, like blacktop scamming, we've had that. And we'll go out and get pictures of them and their license plate numbers. And so that way, if it happens, we know we have them identified, so that if they go back out again, or we can just say, hey, be on the lookout for this person. Most police departments have a Facebook page, Instagram. I'm that's a little bit younger than me, or I know you probably deal with it, but I don't deal with it a whole lot. But a lot of departments have that, and then they can, put that information out. So if you got scammed, yeah, we're sorry for you, but if you tell us, then we can help it to keep from happening to somebody else.
Yeah, because again, if somebody figures out something works, they rarely are going to stop at one. It is sort of that idea. And being a community, really becoming a community that's dementia responsible. And, it's going to take law enforcement. It's going to take all of us, too, working together with law enforcement to make a difference, and EMS and the fire department, because not supporting one another doesn't help. It's a limited resource. I mean, it is a limited resource. And so figuring out how to support one another to make this work well really does make a difference, I think.
Excuse me.
Oh, no problem. So I think those are some of the major things that I wanted for us to talk a little bit about, Dale. Is there anything else that comes right to mind right now? We may get more comments and we may have to go back and approach more of this as we get some feedback.
Well,
we can cut this out, by the way.
No, I got a tickle in my throat.
Yeah, go ahead and call it. Cut it.
It's just don't be afraid to call. That's the big thing is, feel like I'm crying.
Yeah, I was going to say, give it a second, and we'll let you say that again. And I'll just have Drew, I'll ask that question again, and then we'll cut from there.
All right.
So I'll pause for just a second. So Dale, any particular other thing, any last sort of thoughts before we let folks go? And you guys may come up with questions for us that we didn't even think about, and we'll get back to you. So
just don't be afraid to call. You're in a really hard position. Ask for help. You never know where your best help's going to come from. Some of it could come from you, Teepa. Some of it could come from me because I'm the one there and I have access to local resources. And that's one thing that people may not understand is the resources that the police department has access to. And I might not be able to get you right there, but I can refer you to the right people in my area. And that's one great thing about the police department. We have so much information, that we can put people together.
Yeah.
I quite often refer people to the our local group of Alzheimer's Association. One, because I know about it, they did a great job for me, but they are also that other clearinghouse for more information. Senior and disabled services, I know people there, and they're great people to have involved.
So this is part of this network that we have, but we've not actually activated for people living with dementia and their families as much as we might need to for this ultimately to become something that isn't a drama or a trauma for everybody. Because we're all sort of aware of the possibilities and we know more than we used to know, and we do things a little differently. Putting people in handcuffs is not actually something that Dale, really drives around just waiting for his opportunity. There's lots more chances to be helpful. And I think being willing to say, I could maybe use some support here. And I don't even know if you're the right person, but let me ask you. And if not, maybe you will know somebody that could help you. And that's sort of what we're talking about with law enforcement, I think. So. Well, Dale Dawson, thank you again for taking time out of your life, out of your work, and out of kindness for being with us and helping to spread the word and get the word out there. Because I think until we do more of this, people will still not know until it's that moment of crisis. And we're trying to avoid those.
Yeah. And, the other thing is start early. Don't wait until it gets out of control for you. That was something I ended up dealing with a few weeks ago. Somebody has waited till a point and not planned, and they've hit that point where it's almost where it is borderline too much. And with the time that it takes to get somebody somewhere or to get the help, she is so stressed out.
So let's start sooner rather than later, and let's
Mhm.
start by opening doors and windows instead of going help, 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 and become frantic, because that's really hard to intervene when somebody's that distressed.
Yeah, it is.
Well, thank you, Dale, and thanks everybody out there for paying attention, and we will see you again soon for another courageous conversation. Thanks, Dale.
All right. Thanks, Teepa. Bye.
Hi, I'm Teepa Snow, and you just found our YouTube channel and watched one of our videos. I'm the owner and founder of Positive Approach to Care. Thanks for watching, and if you liked, if you have a comment about, or you would, please share it with people you know. Oh, and if you haven't yet done it, consider subscribing. We'll let you know when the next new video comes out. And you might want to visit our website, www.teepasnow.com, where you'll find other resources as well. See you there.